No. Father, come back. I need you. You promised me that you would always be here.
Joshua reached out to his father in the darkness as he was falling away into a mist that rapidly faded him.
How could this be? Where did he go?
The thoughts of his father began to descend into an awakening abyss as he heard a tender and familiar voice call out to him.
Joshua.
It slowly coaxed him awake.
Joshua, are you okay? You were yelling out while you were sleeping again.
Joshua gathered his thoughts as he realized that the nightmare of losing his father was real. How could he go on pretending that his father's absence was not affecting him? He had to find a way to get some answers. He had to find out why his father had suddenly disappeared.
Are you okay, honey?
Yes, Mom, I'll be okay. Just another nightmare.
With tears in his eyes, Joshua sat up on the side of his bed and wiped them away. His mom found a seat next to him and rubbed his back.
I miss him too. You can talk about it if you have a need, Joshua. I'm here for you, okay?
Ashamed, Joshua hung his head and looked away.
I know, Mom. I'll be okay.
Joshua loved his mom. She was a strong woman who took pride in her family. Standing a whopping 6 feet 1 inch tall, she was muscular but curvaceous, with a softness about herself that made her appear sweet even though she was statuesque. She was raised by her hard-working mother and was born in 1979, a time when the black household was starting to fall apart. Her father was never a part of her life and had left the home before she was born. Hadessa's mom never really talked about him, and neither did she. She knew that it pained her mother to do so, therefore those conversations were short-lived and non-existent. Hadessa had beautiful, thick, natural hair that she wore in a neat French braid that hung over one shoulder. Sometimes when she had to dress up, she would let out her beautiful afro and complete the look with a pair of gold hoop earrings that her husband had given her as a first anniversary present. She missed him dearly, but the thought of him only angered her and broke her heart because it seemed as if he'd done the same thing to her as her father had done to her mother, left him. Hadessa's mother instilled in her to never depend on a man to do what she could get done for herself. If she needs to fix a broken doorknob, she could do it. If the oil in her car needed to be changed, she could do that as well. Hadessa could pretty much take care of herself. Her mom taught her how to feed her family on a budget and how to balance her checkbook. She was good at conserving funds and excellent at stretching a buck to provide for her household. Hadessa had a passion for sewing and hairstyling. She was often asked by her friends or neighbors to carry out one of her talented gifts for them, and they happily paid her for the services. She was always willing and able to accommodate them. She saved a hefty nest egg for her family, and they always had what they needed. She took good care of her 3 children, and her mother-in-law, who felt like her very own mom and loved her dearly. Hadessa's mom passed away a few years back, and it was a bit much to deal with. She had faith in Jesus, which was something else that Hadessa's mom instilled in her. Now she could see the benefits of her mother dragging her and her little brother to church every Sunday morning and Bible studies every Wednesday night. It gave her a strength that surpassed all understanding. With a missing husband and 4 people depending on her, she had to look to a power greater than herself. Jesus gave her the strength that she needed to stand. Hadessa looked at her son, with her brow furrowed in the way it always wrinkled when something bothered her, and she lifted his head ever so gently and said to him,
Hold your head up, son. Better days are ahead. Now get washed up and dressed. It's the last day of school, and you don't want to miss saying goodbye to your friends now, do you, Joshua?
Joshua shook his head in agreement, pulled himself off the bed, and headed toward the bathroom. He heard his mother call after him.
And clean up your room when you get home before you go running around with Malik, young man.
Yes, ma'am,
he said, and then he closed the bathroom door. As Joshua looked into the mirror to brush his teeth, a thought crossed his mind.
I'm sure that guy holds a medal for handsomeness.
He laughed at himself. He had a way of making others laugh also, and was a comic relief around the house. After his father disappeared, it was needed, and it added a sense of normalcy to the household. Joshua's mom would always praise him for being so willing to help in any way that she would ask him, and he'd overheard her saying to one of her friends how proud of him she was for stepping up. Joshua left the bathroom, entered his room, and dressed himself in the clothing he had neatly laid across the side chair the evening before. He was meticulous in that way, but lately he'd been slacking off with keeping things in order in his room. Everything had to be in its place, and his room had to be clean and neat. For some reason, he was not doing a good job lately. Joshua planned every evening what he wanted to wear the next day because he was not a morning person and wanted to get dressed with little to no difficulty. He headed downstairs where his family met each morning for breakfast. As he entered the kitchen, his nose filled with the delightful scent of bacon, toast, and freshly squeezed orange juice. His family greeted him, and he smiled as his heart filled with comfort that only his family could give him. He sat and ate, and it was so satisfying that he almost had forgotten that he was supposed to be heading to the bus stop. He snapped out of his trance and realized that Caitlin had gotten up without saying a word and was leaving to catch the bus. Joshua made it to the bus stop in the nick of time. He almost missed it trying to finish up the hefty breakfast that his grandma Bertie Bahira had fixed for him. All of her children called her BB. He chuckled as his pants slid down a bit when he was running to catch the bus, because he could see in his mind how BB would say to Bim,
Pull up your pants and tighten your belt.
When he got on the bus, he spotted Malik, his friend since kindergarten, and sat in a seat opposite of him on the bus.
Sup, man?
Sup?
Malik spoke back as they dapped each other up in greeting. The bus left the neighborhood after several stops to pick up other students heading to Lakeland High School on the south side of Suffolk, Virginia. Joshua looked out the window at the passing houses as the bus rolled on. His mind was on the dream he'd had about his father. None of it made any sense to him. His father had left for work as usual on a Monday morning exactly a year ago and never returned. Joshua was pulled out of his daydream by a punch in the arm from Malik.
Bro, are you awake yet?
Ouch. Yeah, bro, I'm good.
Rubbing his arm, Joshua kicked at Malik while laughing. It was good to have a best friend. Malik was by Joshua's side through all the difficult times that he'd had. When he had his first knee scraped from falling off his bike, Malik was there. When his father had gone missing, Malik was there. Joshua was grateful for Malik, and Malik knew that he also had a good friend in Joshua. Joshua's attention returned to daydreaming, and he continued to look out of the window. The bus passed by the corner store on East Washington Street after the chicken restaurant, and Joshua noticed a man that he often saw talking to himself, watching him through the bus window and looking him dead smack in his face. The man's eyes became blackened, and it startled Joshua. He jumped.
I must be seeing things. What is wrong with me?
He shook it off, and he noticed that Caitlin and Malik were staring at him.
Hey, Caitlin, what's up with my dude today? He seems to be in outer space somewhere.
Caitlin was Joshua's younger sister by 2 years and was also in high school. She'd beaten him on the bus and was now seated close to them at the back with her friend Breezy.
I don't know. He's always lost in space. He's an alien,
she replied with a tort. Joshua shook his head and threw a balled-up piece of paper at her that he found on the floor of the bus and called her a nerd. They all laughed, and she threw it back at him. Afterward, Caitlin turned her attention back to her morning chat with her girlfriend.
Breezy, I found this new lip gloss by that famous singer from the islands, and girla, it even tastes good. Look, I got one for you too.
Breezy instantly snatched it from Caitlin and began to apply it.
Dang girl, it's the thirstiness for me.
They both laughed out loud at each other. They were very close. Breezy was always there to make Caitlin laugh. They always planned things to do together and were as normal as any other teenage girl, but Breezy was a few years older than Caitlin and would graduate soon. Caitlin was saddened at the thought as she watched Breezy go on and on about the lip gloss.
Breezy, can I ask you a question?
She knew she could count on her friend to be honest with her.
If you knew something and you decided to tell someone, but they might think that you need help, would you mention it?
Caitlin, what's going on, girl? You know you can tell me anything.
Breezy replied with a concerned look on her face. Caitlin hesitantly shook it off and said,
Oh, it's nothing, I'm just being silly, never mind.
Her friend shrugged her shoulders and returned her focus to her new lip gloss, and Caitlin burst into laughter towards her friend once again. Being at school that day was exciting. The students exchanged numbers with those who did not have them and signed yearbooks. Joshua and Malik, who shared most classes' roughhouse with their friends, and made plans to hang out with them during the coming summer break from school. One friend in particular, who did not live in their neighborhood, was Jeffrey. He lived 2 neighborhoods over from Joshua and Malik, and would often come to Canaan Park to shoot hoops. Jeffrey had a way with words, and would write rhymes to escape difficult times throughout his life. His father was raising him, his sisters Luna and Astrea, and his baby brother Trias, because their mother was on drugs and had abandoned them. He was behind a bit in school, but he was determined to accomplish his goals and become a famous artist one day. Jeffrey would often be seen with his headphones on and silently mouthing words while bobbing his head to an unheard beat. People would say, "Look at JB spitting those rhymes." The boys made plans to catch up after school, let out for the day, and went on to finish the rest of their classes. Joshua and Caitlin got off of school, bus waving at those who were still aboard.
Breezy, call me when you get home.
Caitlin yelled back toward the open window. Her friend sat beside.
You know I will, bestie.
Breezy said with a smile on her face. The pair walked toward their house, and Joshua stopped short crossing the threshold and turned to look at their driveway, where he imagined his father getting out of his car as they were returning home from school and he from work. Those days were far behind him now, but he could only hope to greet his dad once again.
Joshua, are you okay? No, really, dude, what's going on?
Caitlin had interrupted his thoughts, and he pulled himself together.
Nothing. I'm fine.
He turned and entered the house behind her. They lived in a wonderful community that showcased beautiful manicured lawns and lots of shops nearby. Way down off Jericho Ditch Lane and Promised Land estates, they lived a peaceful life that had abruptly been interrupted by the disappearance of their father. The community itself sounds grand, but it was just a nice community of 2-story single-family homes, complete with several cul-de-sacs and a neighborhood park, Canaan, which housed walking paths, a dog park, a basketball court, and a swimming pool complete with a very nice playground. Although it was placed in the downtown Suffolk area, Promise seemed to be a city all on its own. There was a nearby plethora of shops on Plains Boulevard, George's Meat Market, and acting up an acting studio owned by a young black actor Bruce E. Bridges, who made lots of films but wanted to give back to his hometown community. He moved back home and started a business, a nonprofit, that would take young people off the streets of Suffolk, Virginia. This kind of character was instilled in him through the things that he witnessed his mother do. Vicky, his mother, had always told him to not forget where he came from and to give someone else a hand up. His mom would take the neighborhood children to church with her on a van that the pastor had given her. So Bruce would always try to think of ways to help in his community also. Then there's Mrs. Chen's Yummy Yummy, a Chinese restaurant that Joshua and his family loved to visit. Mrs. Chen was always so nice to them, and she always gave them samples while saying yummy yummy to get them to try her new recipes. Complete with clothing stores, a gas station, a grocer, and also the car shop that Joshua's dad was part owner, Moshe and Mike's Car Care Enterprise. Joshua closed the door behind him as he entered the house. He was greeted by a waft of delicious smells coming from the kitchen, where BB was singing a tune from Sundays. Service, she was jolly in that way. A woman of short stature with wonderful smooth brown skin. Joshua's dad had gotten his height from his father for sure, but it tickled Joshua to see his grandma, so happy all the time in a munchkin kind of way. There wasn't anything silly about her, though. Nothing seemed to bother her. She was a stern woman and adamant in her speech. Wisdom flowed from her in ways that didn't seem to be normal. She was the go-to for your most difficult situations and would offer her thoughts with her sincerest attention.
Hey BB, what are you cooking?
Oh, just some pot roast, mashed potatoes, homemade biscuits, peach cobbler, and some sweet tea to wash it all down.
Joshua loved his grandmother's cooking. She did most of it in the house because his mom was always busy sewing things for people or doing hair at her salon. Joshua smiled at BB because he could see her pleasure in taking care of the family, and it made him grateful to be surrounded with so much love. He headed out of the kitchen after acknowledging his eagerness for dinner, with a swift rubbing of his hands together, then licking his lips before he stated,
I can't wait.
Joshua entered his room and kicked off his shoes before flopping down onto his bed. His mind wandered back to the man he had seen early that morning while he was headed to school on the bus.
What in the world was wrong with his eyes?
He thought. He shook the thought away and closed his eyes for a moment, not knowing how sleepy he was soon fast asleep. Joshua woke about an hour later from the sound of his 10-year-old brother, Kendry, being loud in the hallway. Opening the door, Joshua caught Kendry in the arm with a little punch.
Ouch! I'm telling Mom, you big turd.
Kendry yelled at him as he ran away.
You should stop making all of that noise then.
Joshua shot back.
BB said to wake you up for dinner.
Kendry said back at him and threw his shoe at Joshua before running down the stairs into the dining room, where Caitlin was setting the table for dinner. Joshua followed behind, swiftly chasing him into the room, and Caitlin yelled at them both in protest.
Boys, quit playing around before you break something.
Hadessa entered the dining room with the pot roast, and BB followed with hot biscuits.
Go into the kitchen, Joshua, and grab the peach cobbler, and you get the iced tea, Kendry, and quit all of your horsing around. It's time for dinner.
They were all told to wash up quickly and be seated, so they all could say grace. After dinner was well underway, Kendry began telling everyone about his last day of school.
Mrs. Weaver told the class to keep in touch over the summer. She gave us her telephone number to give to our parents, because she's planning a trip for us to meet up for a day at Busch Gardens.
He was so excited that no one was paying Joshua any mind, and they were all startled when he jumped out his chair.
Joshua, what is the matter?
Nothing, I'm okay, may I be excused?
He asked.
Are you sure you're all right, Jeju?
BB asked.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's been a long day is all. May I be excused?
He asked again, looking towards his mother.
Yes, sweetheart, you may, but if you need anything, please let me know.
When Joshua left the dining room, Caitlin looked at her mother.
He's been weird all day.
Caitlin confessed to her mom.
He was sort of out of it on the bus this morning.
Well, I'll check on him in a little while. In the meantime, let's clear the table.
Hadessa said. Joshua sat in his room trying to wrap his head around what he'd just seen with his own 2 eyes. What is going on with me, he thought. First the guy's eyes and now this. Joshua had seen a bright light behind Kendry, almost like fire, as Kendry went on and on about his last day of school. Nobody seemed to notice except Joshua, and the fire turned into a mist that went around Kendry to form in front of Joshua, and that's what made him jump out of his seat. I must be going nuts. Joshua was perplexed, and he needed to clear his mind, so he called Malik.
Bro, can you meet me at the court tomorrow at noon?
Yeah, are you okay, dude? You don't sound too good.
Yeah, I'll explain when I get there. Can you text JB and ask him to meet up with us too?
Yeah, bro, okay. Malik ended the call.
Holla at you, girl.